If I kissed a woman, like properly, would that make me a hetty?
Don't be absurd.
Absolutely not, no.
Right, good.
Not unless I gave you an erection.
We usually get new members to begin by telling us a history of yourself as a man.
So far, you've been the most disappointing lover I've ever had.
I feel good about that.
So you sat in a room full of straight men and talked about your emotional problems?
How do you feel about your maleness?
You've got a dick, you're a man.
I love being a woman. Not because of you, but because of me.
Oh, no, not my Calvins. No, please.
Oh, stop squealing, you little tart.
Why do I have to have such a complicated sex life?
It's because you give out complicated vibrations.
Don't be so British. You've got to learn to share your feelings.
Can we all go, John? Let these strong, loving men heal you.
I find a member of the group attractive.
Oh, Brendan.
I know him. Brendan's my star pupil. Opened up like a flower.
Is the attraction physical?
It all started when Leo was telling us about his feelings towards Brendan. I had a wank.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
What, you two know each other?
No.
Yes, we do.
Don't.
I'm going over the sex maniac. It can happen to any of us.
I am deeply shocked.
Can you tell us a little bit more about your feelings?
What were you doing on the floor?
We were snogging.
You don't have to look so shocked. We were just giving it a go.
Oh, my God. That woman, that blonde hussy.
Are you okay? What did she do to you?
She is not a hussy, okay?
I think we'll be the judge of that. This is all our fault. I knew we shouldn't have let him get in touch with his masculine side. If he crosses over, I'll never forgive myself.
And that was Kevin McKidd, Julie Graham, Simon Callow, Con O'Neill, Harriet Walter, Christopher Fulford, James Purefoy, Jennifer Ehle, Tom Hollander, Hugo Weaving, and Paul Higgins in the theatrical trailer for this week's film, Bedrooms and Hallways, directed by Rose Troche. I'm Erin Trommater.
I'm Erin Brown.
And this is World Cinema History.
I had a wank.
Jesus Christ.
And Erin, this was your pick this week. Give me a couple of reasons why you picked this particular film.
The first reason is the cast. It's got such an incredible cast. It's an interesting premise. It's all about attraction and how it works and how it's not set in stone necessarily. And it's funny. It was a lot of fun to watch. Those are my reasons.
I'm supposed to remind you about a line involving bivisibility and bubblegum. I have that in my notes.
Oh, such a goofy line. I'm here to chew bubblegum and talk about bi-erasure, and I'm all out of bubblegum.
I've got some gum. You want some gum? I've got some gum. No? We'll talk about bi-erasure instead then.
Yeah. I
So
could do both,
let's
but...
kind of go over a brief plot summary of this film if we can. Let's start with Leo, who's kind of our avatar, the person we're introduced through, who's played by Kevin McKidd. I think most people know him from his TV role on America's Grey's Anatomy. Those of us from the UK cinema history days, of course, remember him as Tommy Mackenzie in Danny Boyle's Trainspotting. And I think he's actually the perfect avatar into this world of presumably gay, but more of just kind of that segment of London where the artisanal people all hang out. And I think a lot of what this plot hinges on, which, if you wanted to be critical, could be called coincidence, actually just comes out from what a very kind of small community we're talking about. So, of course, the man that he's interested in is dating his high school sweetheart, and of course, his high school sweetheart has hired the same real estate agent who played by the great Hugo Weaving before he became super famous for The Matrix and the Lord of the Rings films, that Tom Hollander's Darren is having an affair with. Not because the coincidence is needed for the film to work, but simply because this is just that very, very small segment of the population where you really are only rubbing up against a few people. Erin, give me some of the highlights of the plot as far as you were concerned.
Basically, it's about Leo, who is an openly gay man in London, and he joins his friend's men's group. And while he's there, he meets James Purefoy's character of Brendan and realizes he's got a crush on the guy, and comes out with that in one of the men's group meetings, which leads to Con O'Neill's character Terry also realizing, coming to some conclusions about his own sexuality, and he develops a friendship with Brendan, and then Brendan starts thinking about how he's feeling about Leo. So they end up together briefly, honestly, because Brendan isn't actually as broken up with his girlfriend as he presented himself to be. And his girlfriend ends up being Leo's teenage sweetheart, Sally, who you find out he broke up with earlier because he wasn't sure if their relationship would work because he knew he was attracted to men. So he thought it would be weird to be in a relationship with a woman when he's attracted to men. So over the course of the film, everybody kind of explores their own sexuality and what they're looking for in relationships. And it's really entertaining.
And it all comes to a head at the organic deli that is co-owned by Brendan and Sally.
So, yeah.
Can you forgive me?
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, but it doesn't mean I want you back.
What? Maybe we could, work on it.
Brendan, we've been working on it. This is what we've come up with. I want us to look each other in the eye and just say, that's it, it's over. And when you can do that, come and see me.
My favorite bit is Tom Hollander's Darren just putting an apron on while the owners are all arguing because there's nobody to take care of the customers.
Yeah.
He's like, I just want to be helpful.
Yeah, and he makes the sandwich, and it may be good, it may be not. He just gives it to the guy. It's on the house.
It's on the house. Yeah. It might be ham, it might be cheese. We don't know. And again, it goes back to that kind of small artisanal world. Of course, the organic deli is owned by the first girlfriend of the gay hero. In this particular small world of London, it really is just. And I like the idea that it begins and ends with that party, even though that does have some structural problems with the script because you end up with some flashbacks within a flashback and things like that. But I think it's worth that because it really gives you the idea of just what an incestuous small crowd that this is, and why I think Leo is tempted when his brother Adam, the Christopher Fulford's character, presents him with this men's group, which I don't know if you are old enough to remember Iron John back in the 90s, but I sure am. Which it's not something that would be quite as popular today because of the advent of the internet and the kind of toxic masculinity that came with it. But there was a book called Iron John, a book about men that these men's groups all popped out of by a poet by the name of Robert Bly, who took and this is discussed a few times, but as a joke, but he took Carl Jung's philosophy of archetypes and applied it to grim fairy tales to come up with an idea of manhood and the rights of manhood, and these groups all kind of popped up, and of course today they seem like such a joke, but in 1998 this was a serious movement. And as right-wing as it became, and as toxic as it became with the Andrew Tates of the world, at the time, this was actually seen as men becoming more sensitive and being able to get more in touch with their emotions and being more able to identify with more open ideas such as bisexuality or and be more comfortable with other men having at least that cover of masculine tasks, such as that hilarious camping scene or that rock truth.
That was the best Wild Man weekend ever. Bloody noses, that's excellent.
And I don't know if people without that knowledge of the Iron Giant might get just a lot of the humor, their interactions through this men's group, and that great ending line, they don't need to fight. They just need to fuck.
As much as it was making fun of the men's groups, I wish that the movement had stayed like that and not become just as toxic and horrific as it is now. Because like they forgot everything about being okay with being masculine and having emotions. The only appropriate emotion now is anger. That's all you can have. And that's not healthy at all. That's incredibly toxic. And it's led to a lot of the issues we have now with women's rights being removed in this country, because men think, women have to be a certain way and men have to be a certain way, and everybody suffers when you put everybody in these rigid roles. And I don't know, it was kind of making fun of that in this, but it was also like I liked the idea of the men's group as these guys that are exploring how to be comfortable in who they are. It's
well, I think one of the best scenes in it, you have kind of this triangle scene with Simon Callow silently sitting behind, nodding, as Con O'Neill's Terry is asking a ton of questions about what it's like to have sex with a man. Does it hurt, etc. James Purefoy as Brendan giving just these incredibly honest answers, and you can kind of see Simon Callow in the background, his eyes getting bigger and bigger, like this is more than I had ever expected. There's something so satisfying about the, I guess you could say, caricatures that they chose to put into this men's group, because it felt like a normal cross-section of people who might be interested in the 90s. Before, I think that movement got hijacked, as almost all movements do, whether it's communism getting hijacked by Joseph Stalin, whether it's the Black Panthers getting hijacked by their more radical movement, or whether it is the men's movement getting hijacked by a bunch of people who were using it as an excuse to exploit women and basically become legalized pimps with the advent of the internet. Each and every one of these things gets hijacked and taken over by their worst elements. It is simply the way that these movements go, because, of course, nothing gold lasts. It's easy to laugh at them now. They were sticking their necks out at the time, and they were trying something different. And I do have a lot of respect for them. And I think Troche has, yes, it's a teasing look at it, but I think Troche is actually, there's something kind of a respect for, if not for Leo's participation, but for Adam's. As a heterosexual person willing to be open-minded enough to put themselves through this for the sake of his gay brother.
Yeah, honestly, it was that scene where, Terry's asking Brendan about what it's like to have sex with a man. I thought it was honestly a really kind of a sweet scene, that they're so open about it and so accepting of it, except for, the guy that's homophobic that leaves. which is funny because like that guy John had that whole goofy scene where he had the rock of truth and he like there was pain and it came out his feet and all that. And he was hyperventilating and had this whole big reaction to it. That guy, he had his moment where he was the center of attention and then he could not stand it that Leo's character was gay and they talked about all the gay stuff. Like he didn't want that. He seems like the one that would have stuck with it while it became more and more toxic, unfortunately. But everybody else, I thought they were, honestly, it was sweet. They were able to be open and talk about that. And like Leo says earlier in the film, if you've got a dick, you're a man. Which, not necessarily, but this film didn't touch on any trans issues. And I think that would have been way too complicated at that point.
But let's talk about the talents behind this. Now, I'm not going to go too much into the screenplay because, quite honestly, the scenes that we're playing, had you not had somebody of the strength of, say, a Simon Callow, or the great performances that you had here, they verge on just being camp.
Yeah.
Wouldn't you agree?
Yeah, it's if not with the cast and the director made the script, which is kind of flimsy. They made it really work.
Robert Farrar, who wrote this, he also wrote The Man Who Knew Too Little, which is just the same kind of a plot, except it's Cold War instead of gay stuff.
Right.
A lot of coincidences happen, and it's Bill Murray being put through it. It's rather. But the dialogue is rather excellent, especially as delivered. But I think a lot of that comes down to Rose Troche, and it's kind of a tragedy about Rose Troche because she's done 4 feature films, of which I've seen all 4 of them, and 3 of them are very, very good. Of course, she's best known, and it was mentioned in our interview with Sab Rogers, the Go Fish, which was co-written and co-produced with very much friend of the show, Guinevere Turner. Who was actually Troche's girlfriend at the time. Then she and that was quite an independent hit. It was made for just absolutely no money and made a couple of $1 million in the 1990s when independent films weren't doing anything, and was a very early version of mainstream queer cinema. And then she followed it up with this film. But unfortunately, when she returned from London to the United States, she made a film called The Safety of Objects, which was made based on a series of short stories by Anne Holmes, and very influenced, I thought, by the films of Robert Altman. But it was not a very good film. And it came across as the very bad Robert Altman. Had a great cast. I remember Glenn Close was in it, and Timothy Oliphant, and Dermot Mulroney. I mean, just a wonderful cast, but not a very, very, very good film. Very, very disorganized. And unfortunately, that kind of got her put into the cable TV ghetto, where she did a couple of episodes of shows like 6 Feet Under and The L Word and what have you. And she didn't come back until I think it was 2022 when she directed for Amazon a movie that I rather liked called My Fake Boyfriend, which was a story of a group of friends. It was kind of reminiscent of this because it was the same kind of found family gay culture, but it was a group of friends after the main character breaks up with his boyfriend, kind of creating a catfish online persona to get him over his broken heart, with hilarity ensuing. And I really feel like she was back on her game, but that never got a theatrical release. It just went straight to Amazon, and I never hear anybody talking about it. But I do hope more people see it, and perhaps she gets more work, because she is very, very talented.
Oh, yeah. So Leo discovers over the course of the film that he's bisexual. See, the first time I watched it, it felt like it could have been so easy for it to be like, he's not gay anymore. And that's just not true. You know, you don't stop being queer just based on who you're dating. And
and the very last line, by Hollander is it's just a phase as he's walking away from and that roll credits, which I thought was great.
Yeah, it was funny. Random tangent. I just feel like Tom Hollander's character in this is like his White Lotus character, but as a twink. So I don't know. It was just funny to me because I didn't make the connection that's he was in season 2 of White Lotus until later. But
well, and for people who are like, I kind of know that name. No, it's not Spider-Man. No, it's not the co-host of the rest of his history. That's only a Tom Holland. This was a Tom Hollander, and as the meme on Facebook says, that implies the existence of a Tom Hollandest out there. But people who will know him from if they had children, my kids' generation, from the Pirates of the Caribbean film as the I can't remember the character's name, but he was the head of the East India Company. Who was constantly, and he has the great line right before he gets blown up in the third Pirates of the Caribbean film. It was just business. So if he looks a lot shorter in this than I remember him in the Pirates of the Caribbean films. I had never really thought of him as being so physically small. But he has so many great scenes. He really is the lifeblood of this film, I think.
He's hilarious. He's so great. I mean, Darren is that gay best friend that everybody wants. I think one of my favorite shots in the film was when he was in the pool with Hugo Weaving. And it's just top down, and there he is, and there's his ass, and he's just floating with a snorkel, and Hugo Weaving comes up because you know what they were just doing. That I thought that was so hilarious, and it was
pairing him and Hugo Weaving was perfect.
Oh yeah,
I thought because they are together, the two most dynamic elements of the film, and Hugo Weaving's character is very, very interesting because, of course, he is not interested in relationships or even probably sex. He just seems to be more interested in his homosexuality as a danger to explore. As it's the thrill of almost getting caught, and he has this kind of fetish for other people's houses and keys. And some of the funnier moments are as he as a real estate agent looking at properties and deciding whether or not to list them, but based on where he could have sex in the house. Like for instance, there's one house that he's like, this just isn't the kind of property. But then he sees a table that you can prop up, and he immediately pictures himself at, and it's like, okay, you know what, we will do this house. And of course, but of course, this is more of that coincidence that of the kind of the slenderness of this screenplay that he is listing the property that Brendan and Sally both had shared after the breakup. And one of the sets of keys that he gets, and he decides to take Tom Hollander for, and decides to experiment with handcuffs at, is Sally's house.
And
the way he gets out of it, or tries to get out of it.
So funny.
Who the hell are you?
Oh, happy birthday, dear Geraldine. Congratulations, you're 17.
My name is not Geraldine, and it's not my birthday.
Isn't it? But this is 25 Sheldrake Avenue, isn't it?
No, this is 23 Sheldrake Avenue.
Oh, God, how appallingly embarrassing. I'm an S&Mogram, and I've obviously got the wrong house. No.
Don't I know you?
I hope not. Ah! It wasn't my idea. I'm going out with a sex maniac. It could happen to any of us.
But then that does
funny.
imply, why would you buy a 17-year-old and as an immigrant?
that's a little.
The 90s were the 90s
Yeah.
were a different time, man. You know,
And,
I mean,
it was in London, so I don't know what the age of consent is in the UK. So maybe
I think
it's more normal. I don't know.
8. I'm not sure.
No, it's not West Virginia. It's um,
Let's talk a little bit about this cast. Hugo Weaving
Yes.
is obviously now the best known because of Lord of the Rings and Matrix. If you don't know who Simon Callow is by name, you will definitely recognize him as Keith. I remember him because I used to have a recording of him as Mozart in the 1979 version of the play Amadeus, where he played opposite very much friend of the show Paul Scofield from of course A Man for All Seasons and King Lear, but he is actually also in the 1984 film where he plays Papageno.
Okay.
But like again, and I think it's his performance that sells that men's group, because it is. I think anybody who didn't have his theatrical timing, that whole bit would have gone, I think, so far over the top as to make you just feel uncomfortable, especially the sauna scene.
The sauna scene, that was funny. Yeah, he was really good. He was he played it in a very honest way, so it was believable. And yeah, it could have so easily gone over the top, and I'm glad that it didn't, because I mean, the men's group came across as being very genuine while also very silly, and I really enjoyed that.
Well, and if Tom Hollander's Darren is the lifeblood of this film, I think that Callow is kind of what pulls the film together.
Yeah.
Because number one, he's probably the most recognizable character. So when he shows up at the party, you suddenly can identify the circle around him, because of course a film like this is always in danger of what I call the all white people look alike syndrome.
Yeah.
Where, wait, is that guy, or wait, no, what was he in the, wait, is that his brother? But Callow, because he's just very unusual looking, to put it on
got a
nicely.
distinctive face. Yeah.
I'm afraid it sets into place very, very easily who these people are at the party and where they relate in the story as the story's being told in flashback. So it was a brilliant piece of casting for that. The other really recognizable person, at least to I'm sure you, Erin, was Con O'Neill as Terry. Now I remember him mostly for Chernobyl. But he is also quite memorable for his role in Batman, because nobody can forget that voice. But
it's got such an unusual voice, yeah.
It's such an unusual voice, isn't it? Although we found out on one of your favorite shows that he's also got a very beautiful singing voice. What was that show again?
Our Flag Means Death. Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, seeing that he was in the cast was one of the selling points of this for me. Yeah. In fact,
for those who don't know, Erin Brown is
with that show.
Obsessed with with the 2 seasons of a television program called Our Flag Means Death, which featured Con O'Neill as
Izzy Hands. He's Blackbeard's first mate, Izzy Hands.
Blackbeard, of course, being played by very, very much friend of the podcast and director and star of the film Boy. How do you pronounce his name?
Taika Waititi.
I'm just kidding. We also, there's a whole episode called Why I Love Taika Waititi and You Should Too, by Erin Brown.
Me. Yeah. He's amazing. I love Taika. That's why I watched Our Flag Means Death, and then I realized, oh shit, Rhys Darby is amazing too. So.
Oh yeah, he was on that show. I forgot.
That guy.
Oh yeah, Rhys Darby. I forgot all about it. No,
it always comes back to Rhys Darby. I will always find a way to bring it back around to Rhys Darby.
And if you're listening, Darby, you have no bigger fan than Erin. Come on the show. We had Luke on, Luke Higginson.
Yeah.
We love you, Luke Higginson, if you're listening.
He's amazing. Yeah, the sauna scene. The Our Flag Means Death fandom is not known for its hinges, and so there are a lot of people that are like super into Con O'Neill right now, and he loves it because he goes to the conventions and he's just like so happy to be there. But yeah, there's an image from the sauna scene of Con naked, and not that you see anything, but he's very clearly naked, and that's made the rounds on Twitter and Blue Sky because everybody's like, "Oh my god, look at him!" So that's the sauna scene amused me because that's where that came from. Okay, but it also amused me because Terry had that revelation about his own sexuality and has a crush on Brendan, and so there he is in the sauna and he's looking over at James Purefoy's junk, and it's hilarious.
Well, and of course the irony is Leo is the one who doesn't want to be naked in front of all these guys, and he's like, I'm going to wear pants, and he has to think about Margaret Thatcher in order to keep from getting an erection.
Well, who would have thought? Oh, God.
Get off. Wonder how Leo's doing.
Margaret Thatcher, right. In 1979, Margaret Thatcher moves into 10 Downing Street after a Tory landslide.
I want to share something with the group.
There is no universe where that is not funny.
Yeah, that's incredible. I mean, seriously, Margaret Thatcher, just yuck. And he's got her biography and everything, so that when he's having his dreams about Brendan, he wakes up and he has to go get that book. I loved the dream sequences. I loved how they were shot. I loved the first one where like they're on the beach and they start kissing and then buckets of water get dumped on them. And it was so obviously just like 2 buckets of water just dumped on them from the sides. It was the way it was shot was so funny. Yeah. Plus James Purefoy is actually English, so it would have been funny if he had reverted to his natural accent instead of being Irish. That was something that actually amused me because Kevin McKidd is Scottish playing English, and James Purefoy is English playing Irish. What they really...
and to listeners wondering where you have seen him before, he was the Black Prince in A Knight's Tale.
Yes, yeah. Okay, so the biggest thing I have to
We've
throw this
all
out there,
seen that movie.
yeah. But no, the biggest thing to me was Kevin McKidd and James Purefoy were in the HBO series Rome as Lucius Vorenus and Mark Antony. And their chemistry in this was incredible. I mean, they had such great chemistry, and that carries over into Rome, even though they're not lovers or anything in that. Every time they have a scene together, they are just so focused on each other, and they're so perfect in their characters. It's a great, if you haven't seen that series, you have to watch Rome. That was one of my special interests before Our Flag Means Death. I watched that series so many freaking times. But yeah, I mean, James Purefoy and Kevin McKidd were both so amazing in that, and they had really great chemistry, even though they didn't have a lot of scenes together until the second season. Just, these are 2 actors that do really well together in whatever they do. And it was so apparent in this film because they were very believable as lovers, And it's funny because another thing that's funny to me about this is that they're both straight. Tom Hollander, I believe, is straight. I looked in the Wikipedia, and all 3 of them are married to women, so not necessarily straight, but in heterosexual
and he has children, and he has had children, which is more, I think, to the point.
You don't stop being bisexual just because you're in a heterosexual relationship. The attraction is still there. It's part of who you are, just like being straight is part of who you are, being queer is part of who you are, being bisexual is a queer identity, and it doesn't stop just because of the relationship you're in. And that actually, Leo touches on that when he's talking to Sally about why they broke up, because he was afraid. He didn't know that he could be in a relationship with a woman and still be queer. And of course you can. Excuse me.
And yet Leo also says his biggest fear is falling in love with a straight man.
Exactly. Yeah. He doesn't. because he'd get his heart broken if he fell in love with a straight man who couldn't reciprocate his feelings. So it's good that Brendan explored his own feelings and sexuality too, so he could know more about who he is. Yeah.
I think Tom Hollander's point of, all relationships end, you either break up or you die.
Yeah. Something one of my friends told me.
And the kind of cyclical nature of Con O'Neill's Terry's relationship with James Purefoy's Brendan, where Brendan first invites Leo out for Guinness, and then does the same thing at the end of the film with O'Neill.
Yeah,
implies that there is this kind of an arc.
Yeah.
And it's unsaid, but it seems like the reason why his relationship failed with Sally is because of his own, at least, suspicion of his attraction to men.
Yeah,
in that scene in the diner.
Yeah, and it's complicated. Figuring out your sexuality is a complicated thing, and I'm glad that they addressed it, even though they didn't like come right out and spell it out for you. But yeah, I mean,
well, this wasn't that kind of a film.
No,
this was a comedy of manners. Which, and in 1998, you have to remember how, this is what, 2 years after the La Cage aux Folles, the third La Cage aux Folles remake, right?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
The Defense of Marriage Act has just been signed by a Democratic president. I mean, it was a totally different time.
Yeah,
but this is
people didn't. Bisexuality wasn't even really discussed. I remember the House on Haunted Hill, I think, had was it Catherine Zeta-Jones was playing a bisexual character, and that was like a big deal because nobody really talked about people being bisexual, and of course they made her out to be kind of slutty, which sucks.
Well, no. To be fair, in the 90s, if you stayed up late enough and watched Cinemax, a lot of people talked about bisexual women.
Skinemax, yeah.
You can't tell a book by its cover, but if the book is called Bisexual She-Devils from the Planet Touch Me, you know that I watched it during the 1990s.
Honestly,
I did not see this film in 1998. I was 28 years old in 1998. I didn't marry and have children until 2001.
Okay.
So I was still a young single. I don't even remember if I was dating at that age. I don't remember much about me. At that point, I thought beer was food. But I don't know how I would have reacted to watch it, whether or not I was... how my own prejudices worked then. Mm-hmm. And this is, I think, a very, very interesting point, because people don't just suddenly evolve into views. They are led into them. And that's got a negative and a positive aspect. So, when it came to gay people, gay marriage, anything to do with homosexuality in 1998, it doesn't matter how liberal you were, chances are you had some, by today's standards, of almost Stone Age views about it that you don't now. And the thing is, it wasn't just, wow, suddenly Will and Grace comes on TV and people change their mind. They were led by their own, whether it was politicians who were fighting for gay marriage, whether it was celebrities coming out of the closet and saying, hey, if you love me, you should love gay people, these type of things. And so the more complex view that I think we have, at least here on the left, of homosexuality was something that was led more by people and more by films like this, giving you a human look at an aspect of film, not a prurient view. This isn't, you're not, oh, titter titter, how naughty,
Yeah.
but just a kind of a funny view of some funny people, and some good personality who, by being gay or by being in this, most of them are actually, there aren't any real gay characters. They're almost all bisexual. I would say Tom Hollander and Hugo Weaving's character are the only actual.
Yeah.
Almost, yeah. But on the LGBTQ spectrum, anyway, and so perhaps I never watched the show, but I do hear that Will and Grace did actually have that influence of people who are like, oh, he's a homosexual. I like him as a character. I watch him every week. And so when they ran into homosexuals in real life, they were able to relate it to Will on Will and Grace and have a much more open mind. And in a way, I think it's sad that society works that way. But I think
but
that's
at
how
the same
society
time,
works.
It definitely is. Yeah, I mean, if you if you don't know any gay people, you're not gonna really understand. You're not gonna have a human face to put on this concept, and people can tell you, oh, they're so bad, they're so evil, and you don't have anything saying that's actually not true. So having a human face to put to, this is what people are actually like, is a huge help. And so yeah, Will and Grace was good for that. RuPaul's Drag Race, I think, was huge in helping people really see gay culture.
I don't think RuPaul's Drag Race helped people in identification of the homosexual aspect. I think it was more in the trans aspect. And I say this because I have friends who are devoted watchers of RuPaul's Drag Race who have Neanderthal views of homosexuality because they have not mentally made the association between what they are watching and gay people. And you can explain it to them all you want. It's never gonna, it's just simply, haha, that's entertaining to me.
That's sad. That's actually really sad because,
and I think it's a lot more prevalent than you think. If you were to do a cross section of MAGA voters who also watch RuPaul's Drag Race, I think you would be surprised at how much crossover that there is.
Well, that's depressing. Because I mean, these are people,
It's just but it's just an entertaining show to them.
That's sad.
Look at the freaky people in the dresses, and they can't see past that. And
that is really sad.
Well, and I think some of that has to do with how the show is set up, because it's set up as a contest, and it's set up as there is a soapy element to it. There is a trashy element to it, and if you're not in on the joke and you're just watching it, as a piece of soapy entertainment, then all the rest of that can just fly over your head because it's just it's Honey Boo Boo in drag to a very large portion of the audience. Hey, look at this cross section of society. Ain't they weird?
That is depressing as hell because I mean, it's the drag version of a reality show, so it is over the top and bonkers. But I mean, you do get to know the personalities of the people, and you pick favorites, and you're like, I like this person, I don't like this person, and I guess I'm the weird one because for me it was it was a learning experience watching it. I mean, I'm definitely pro queer rights and everything. I mean, I'm part of the community myself, which I didn't know for a very long time.
Well, we should clarify that you identify as ace.
Yeah, I'm asexual. Yeah, and that's the A on the LGBTQIA.
Just to keep your inbox from overfilling too much.
Oh God. See, that's why I don't want to know if there are any negative comments about me in any of these episodes, because women tend to get judged really harshly in stuff, but in everything.
Well,
and
they,
being
they're all idiots. Just and when by they're all, I just mean anyone with a penis. Men are icky, which I would never fuck one. Just to be honest, I don't know what guys. So if I were a woman, I think I'd be an ace too.
Unfortunately, it doesn't work that way. Because I mean, honestly, it's proof that your sexual attraction isn't a choice, that so many women are straight because of how shitty certain men are. And that's what we're going all the way back to the Andrew Tate situation. The men's groups devolving into these horrible things where women are dehumanized.
Andrew Tate literally set up to exploit women, to sell sex on cameras.
Yeah.
He is he is literally a pimp.
Yeah.
This idea that has anything to do with men's rights is completely in the imagination of his followers.
Exactly. Yeah. They're all these guys that have these whole men's groups, and men are and women are terrible, and they've all got something to sell. They're scammers. They're exploiting men being lonely and feeling disenfranchised, even though men are still the most powerful people, especially white men are straight white men are the most powerful people in the world right now. And it's been that way for a long time. And
who controls straight white men?
Themselves.
The porn industry. It is a well-known fact that if you advertise on pornographic websites, you reach a larger section of the male population than anywhere else, including billboards.
That's true. The Andrew Tates of the world are exploiting men's loneliness and their perceived losing of power, because there are people that feel like if anybody else gets rights, they somehow have fewer rights, and that's just not how rights work. But it's easy to exploit that mindset. Cishet white men definitely in America and in European countries, men being so used to being unquestioned and being centered in everything, seeing other people being centered in different aspects, feel like they've lost something. And that's being exploited by these scammers that, they'll charge you thousands of dollars to take their course on how to be a manly man. And it's all about devaluing women.
I hate to burst your bubble, though. The Andrew Tate course is not how to be a manly man.
No, it's not. But that's what they sell it as.
It is how to get women to work for you on camera. And it is simply that. Tate is at the top of the pyramid scheme, and it is all about exploiting women on for cameras.
Yeah, but that's just one. That's just one example. That's just one person. There's a lot of
all
these influencers.
All of them have some sort of pyramid scheme attached to them.
That's what I'm saying.
Every one of them.
That's what I'm saying. They're exploiting men's loneliness for their own gain, for their pyramid schemes. That's what it is, and it's horrible because it's not empowering men. It's not helping men be their better selves. It's how they can feel superior to all these terrible women that do these terrible things by, existing and having rights.
Well, I can't read into the minds of people who, but I wonder if a good percentage of them aren't simply just hustlers on a different level, looking at the next layer but beneath them on a pyramid, saying they can pull off the same scam.
Yeah. That's what it is. That's how pyramid schemes work. Is you've got the guy on the top convinces the guy below him that he's ahead of these other guys, and they're all.
So let's take out people age, say, 12 to 16, right? Yep. Okay, just take that block out, which is obviously these people, including Tate's biggest audience, right? Yeah. But they're not making Tate any money.
Right.
They're getting abused or what have you. I think almost anyone else beyond them are grooming that section so that they can exploit them later.
Yeah.
Who are involved in this. Because when you listen to, and I don't listen to them myself for obvious reasons, but when you listen to the podcasts or look at the YouTube videos on these, almost all of these are a subset where they have something else to sell, and almost all of them are talking to this age group, 12 to 16. And I think of myself when I was that age, and the mixed up feelings that I had about the world. And I wonder, would I have been game for these types of people at that age? And I don't have an answer, but because obviously there was no internet and there was no way for these people to reach me. But I don't understand why people who like to throw the word grooming around for anything up into having people who happen to be trans reading stories to children who can't read yet don't use the word grooming for the exploitation of this particular group of young men.
Exactly, it is grooming. It definitely is, and I think that we're on the same page here. I think we're saying basically the same thing. These guys are exploiting people who don't know any better by using their insecurities to make money for themselves. It's
and
depressing.
That goes back to where I was saying that was a positive thing, which is to say a will and grace, right?
Yeah.
Which is that from a negative, this is a negative as well. People don't evolve into their point of views; they are led into them, and that can be a positive when it opens you up to a segment of society and allows you to envision them as your fellow citizen and somebody who is going through the same struggle as you and is part of your struggle. And it can be also a negative when you have a glorified pimp day after day attempting to sell you on a pyramid scheme that is based on your idealization of yourself as being superior to anyone who doesn't share the same anatomy that you have.
Right. Yeah. I agree with that. That's just how humans work, and it kind of sucks, but you got to use it for good, man. And that's what's so sad about the men's group. And this was about empowering these men to be their best selves. It wasn't about. I don't think Keith wanted to scam anybody. I mean, he was certainly making money off of them, but he wasn't doing anything harmful.
I'll give this to Robert Bly, although there's a lot about Robert Bly that it does not pass the smell test. Don't get me wrong. But I'll give this to Robert Bly. When he was going back to Grimm's fairy tales and this idea of this tale of Iron John, he was just attempting to work out this kind of masculinity, and he was asking questions through this Jungian lens. This new group of male exploitive rights activists probably have no idea who not only Robert Bly is, but Carl Jung, or maybe even the Brothers Grimm.
Yeah.
Quite honestly.
Because they don't care about that. They just want to make money.
Bly was at least coming at it from a knowledgeable place.
Yeah.
Whereas these people have become so anti-intellectual that they can't even be informed by the predecessors, like this men's group in this film.
Yeah, it's depressing as hell. Because there is nothing inherently wrong with masculinity. When we talk about toxic masculinity, that's not masculinity is toxic. It's here's some ideas that are not actually what masculinity is.
That firewood is not going to cut itself.
But yeah, I mean, they're taking ideas of, this is what men do, and they take like the dumbest and worst and most toxic things. Like, men don't cry. It's like, yeah, men should cry when they feel like crying. There's nothing wrong with that. You should understand what your emotions are and know how to process them so that you don't. Yeah.
You remember that? It's all right to cry. It might.
I don't,
make you
but
feel
yeah,
better. You
I've heard
don't
of it.
remember Free to Be You and Me?
I've heard of it, but I don't. I'm not familiar with it.
Oh, we have to do an episode. We have
okay.
to do an episode with Michael Jackson and yeah, we have to do an episode on Free to Be You and Me.
Okay,
it's classic.
Yeah, we can do that.
Classic.
We can do that. I'm fine with that. No, okay. So it would have been so easy. I feel like for this film to have instead of. So I when I watched it again last night, I decided to like note every time they said bisexual, and they said it all at one time over the course of the entire film. It would have been very easy for this film to just, because Leo ends up with Sally, to be like, he's straight now, he's not gay anymore. But it didn't go that direction, and I really like that. That the way that it was handled was sexuality is fluid on a lot of people. It's a spectrum. There's no, you're 100% one thing or the other. You can be pretty sure, like I know I'm ace, but anytime I felt any kind of attraction has been for men. I'm not into women. But
you wouldn't kick Reese Darby out of your bed.
Well, no. Not that he would be there. The man is happily married.
I thought that was a perfectly good metaphor.
You're not wrong.
I regret nothing.
No, you're not wrong. Again, it's a spectrum. With asexuality, I mostly am not into anything, but I can make exceptions, and that's why I identify more as gray ace than fully ace, because it's a spectrum, and so many things can influence it. Like your mood that day. I'm paraphrasing, but I don't know who said it, but basically there are no binaries in nature. Everything is a spectrum. So asexuality is a spectrum. You're not just allosexual or asexual and nothing in between. That's where demisexual comes in, where you don't feel sexual attraction until you have an emotional connection. Gray sexual is you only feel attraction sometimes, or it's a very weak attraction. Some folks have zero attraction and are not into sex at all. They're sex repulsed. Some people are sex positive but asexual at the same time. It's very complicated, right? Bisexuality is the same way. You feel attraction. You're not like it's not people are only straight or only gay. You can be anywhere in between. You can feel attraction to all genders, but mostly to one more than the other. Which is what I feel Leo is in this. He's mostly attracted to men, but there's something about Sally that he's attracted to as well. So, it could be a combination of being demisexual with the opposite gender, but allosexual with the same gender, like he's into men and this one specific woman. And that's still bisexual, and you don't stop being queer based on who you're with. So he can be in a heterosexual relationship and still be bisexual and still consider himself queer, because it doesn't.
And that's an
stop.
Interesting point about the movie.
Yeah.
Because nobody seems to be attracted to a person, and then that guides them into their sexuality. It seems in the film, which is how I normally perceive sexual attraction, is somebody is attracted to a human being, whether it's a man attracted to a man, a woman attracted to a woman, or a cis couple attracted to each other, and that guides their sex. That's how I perceive it. In the film, it seems they are attracted to a type of sex, be it, two men, two women, etc.
Voila.
Fantastic.
You should have brought the women from your group along.
Yeah.
Add a little female energy to the mix.
Actually, they're all a bit volatile at the moment. Jane's decided she's not a lesbian. She just happens to be in love with a woman. Thank you. Wendy's decided she is a lesbian, but she wants to be with a man. And Penny's increasingly frustrated because she doesn't feel sexual at all, so she feels left out.
Now, that would have been an interesting dynamic to explore.
Yeah.
I want to see that story.
Yeah, definitely.
We never see it. It seems to me that Con O'Neill's Terry,
Mhm.
when he goes home and buys men's magazines and has a wank because it's the first time he has thought about homosexuality and associated himself with it is simply because he had never heard people talk about it in those kind of lurid terms before. So again, he's not attracted to Brendan, and that leads him to choosing that sexuality. He's attracted to that sexuality, and that leads him to being attracted to Brendan. And it's interesting that the film doesn't explore the other way around.
Yeah, I don't think there was like enough room in the script to really explore that much. Also, Rose Troche said, I'm looking at the Wikipedia about this, and the quote is, she wanted to make a film that's genderless without sexual identity and politics. So basically, anybody can be attracted to anybody. That's how it works, you know? I don't know that it was as much about being attracted to the kind of sex. I think it was more about being open to being attracted to whoever you're attracted to. Because Terry was definitely attracted to Brendan as soon as he realized he might have, feelings for other men. And I do love the way he delivered the line, I had a wank.
I really wanted to push myself to the very limits of self-discovery. And after I'd meditated, I knew what I had to do. What? I went to a newsagent's and I bought a magazine.
Tell us about the magazine, Terry.
It was a pornographic magazine.
Yes.
With pictures of men. Oh, Jesus Christ.
Terry, you're doing very well. Let the harpoon help.
Well, after I bought the magazine, I took it home and I read it, and I looked at the pictures, and I had a wank.
It was funny seeing Terry be jealous of Leo and Brendan, to the point that they got in a fight at that camp out. So he got punched in the nose twice.
And he punches him in the nose again at the end at the party.
Yeah. Laugh at a guy being punched in the nose, but the way it was handled was so funny.
But you do have the counter. You do have the, like I said, everyone else seems to me to be bisexual in this film, except for Darren and Jeremy, Tom Hollander and Hugo Weaving. But Hugo Weaving is kind of shown as being in it for the thrill. When he realizes that Darren has got real feelings and feels like they're a real couple, you don't get the feeling that the feeling is mutual. You only get the feeling that he realizes that this is what he's got to do to have his partner for these thrills.
Party.
Oh, I see. Ah, well. Will you please take these?
Jeremy? There's going to have to be changes.
I can change.
There's going to have to be trips to art galleries.
Oh, absolutely. Look, I've circled some ideas.
There's going to have to be lunches in Soho.
Why not? That is a rather splendid bunch of keys.
Ah, well. I've got the keys to my mum's place.
Yes.
And keys to my place. And... ooh.
What? Keys to what?
Right, we haven't got much time, Andrew's at the party.
And he really only agrees to it when Darren, Tom Hollander, dangles a set of keys and triggers his little key fetish in front of him.
True.
Which again goes back to this theme, I think, of people not really being attracted to people, but being attracted to sex and sexuality. And let's talk a little bit about the straight up romance between Leo and Sally, and the we thought we'd try noshing, and that the hilarious and great line where she said, you've been nothing but a disappointment to me sexually so far, and
Yeah.
Leo's saying, well, that's great, so anything I do from here on will be an improvement. But again, the way it's talked about is not, while we have this chemistry, because of course they say something to the effect of that the chemistry was the one thing that they took for granted that they had, but this kind of idea of I just kind of wonder what it would be like to have sex with you. And I don't know if that's as a director, I don't know if that was written as a screenplay, but that's not how human beings work. That's not how relationships develop. And that's not how attraction works. It just isn't it. But I took it as kind of a send up of how these comedy of manners always end up, with everybody just kind of running off and screwing each other in an incestuous little circle. And I just kind of took that as a parody. But if you were to actually take her at her word and say that there was nothing sociological about the identifications in this, then there would be a huge flaw in this film, which is that, people do not relate to each other in the way that they do in this film. But if, on the other hand, you are taking that she is making this point about you are what you are when you do what you do, then it makes perfect sense, because these are caricatures to make that point. But I don't think they really talk about this idea of bi culture today. And I think
really don't.
I think whether it's straight or gay culture, I think it's just as controversial now as it was then.
Oh yeah, biphobia and bi-erasure are real things. You don't hear a lot about bisexual people, and even within the community,
because we as human beings are naturally programmed to think of things in terms of monogamous situations, to pair people off. Bisexuality is going to throw a wrench in that automatically, because, of course, you can't pair people off into bisexual couples without having to have a much more complex view of things. And you can't read minds; you don't know what they're thinking. A bisexual woman could be married to a man, be completely faithful to him, still be bisexual in her mind, and we're never going to know it.
I don't think it's that complex. Honestly, being bisexual doesn't mean you're gonna sleep with anything that moves. If someone is bisexual and they're in a committed relationship...
Are you saying that Cinemax lied to me all those years?
Oh, Skinemax would never lie to you.
Oh, okay. Just making sure.
There is a misconception that bisexual people are more likely to cheat because they've got more options as far as partners go, but it's not true. It doesn't mean you're going to cheat. It doesn't mean you're thinking about cheating. It's just who are you attracted to?
It's true only to the extent that better-looking people are more apt to cheat because they have more options, which is both true and untrue.
Right? Yeah. It's just down to the person whether they're going to do that or not.
Technically, if you have more options, then yes, there's a better chance that or less of a chance that you're going to be staying faithful. But then, does that mean that the Jimmy and Rosalind Carter, who stayed married for 78 years just because they were ugly? Absolutely not.
Right. It's all about the person and their view of the relationship. It's not about, if you're bi, you're going to do these things. It's not how that works. Again, there's no binaries in nature. It's all a spectrum. Biphobia is a real thing. People just assume you have to be either gay or straight, and that's just not how the world works. And so biphobia exists even within the queer community because people still have the idea you have to be one or the other. And that's in the film at one point when Leo realized he still had feelings for Sally. And Darren is like, oh no, you're heterosexual. That's a reaction that happens within the community. And it's not fair because, being bisexual is just as valid as anything else. It's misunderstood and mischaracterized a lot. And I'm glad that this film didn't go that way with it. They showed it as something that is totally acceptable. So when Leo ends up with Sally, it's not his life is better now that he's straight again. It's he's bi and he's accepting that, and she's accepting that, and their friends are accepting that, and everybody is thinking about what their sexuality is. And it's I
And
think it's
Darren is
handled
right.
very
It's
well.
probably just a phase.
Yeah, it might just be a phase. You never know.
But who knows? At the age of 30 is kind of, I mean, that's when I settled down on one, that's when I got married, there is something that happens at the age of 30 where, I can't put my finger on it because, I don't think you are any less, driven, sexually, at that age. I think that doesn't start to slow down until you're in your 50s. But I think there is something where you just kind of been there, done that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
kind of sets it.
You get some maturity and you get some perspective on the world, and it helps you decide if this is what I want with my life now. But I mean, that can happen later in life too. That's some people never want to settle down. Some people settle down early. Some people don't realize their sexuality until later in life, which is a recurring theme.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
Some people just want to watch the world burn.
So overall, what were your thoughts on the film?
Overall, I thought it was really good. I mean, it's not, it's a very lightweight thing. It's a comedy, and it's just a light, goofy comedy that happens to make some really good points. It has an incredible cast, which something that's kind of funny about that to me is I looked up the actors, and for the most part, they're all straight except Con O'Neill isn't. He actually came out at one of the conventions for Our Flag Means Death, which was amazing that he felt comfortable enough to do that, because he's always so private with his personal life. For him to actually feel comfortable enough with the fandom to come out was amazing. But Simon Callow was openly gay, and he was playing the only guy in a committed cishet relationship. Like, he's the only guy shown to, apart from like at the end of the film with Adam and Angie, he's the only person to have sex with a member of the opposite gender. And it's a man who is openly gay in real life. Almost the entire rest of the cast is straight, but the characters are questioning their sexuality, and the actor who is openly gay is in a heterosexual relationship. And I thought that was really funny that that's how the casting went. I don't know if that was on purpose or not. Funny coincidence if not. But yeah, I thought that was clever. If that was intentional, that was like a clever little thing to throw in there. But yeah, overall it was, it was lightweight and silly, but it was well shot, well written, well acted. It was funny. It had some really great moments. Like, again, I love the part in the pool where you know exactly what they were up to, but you don't see anything. I just thought the way that it was shot, just top down, and there's Tom Hollander naked in the pool with a snorkel. That was just so freaking funny to me. So yeah, overall, I liked it, and I liked the points that it made and the representation. I mean, even the shout out to the ace person in the women's group made me happy. I think it was a lot of fun.
And it is awesome that we were able to get a glimpse of a different side of life, which I think is what queer cinema at its best does, as opposed to being a queer version of a Sidney Poitier film where you have the gay character who is saintly in all, and is constantly helping little old ladies across the street. You get, you actually get this, especially the Darren and Jeremy, the Tom Hollander and Hugo Weaving characters. You get the periods,
Yeah.
and I think queer cinema is still best when it is using queerness for some kind of a shock value, and we've seen where a film that has a queer theme can be a little too mild. When we did Staircase, where there wasn't a lot of shock value, and you had just that kind of cliched bitchiness, and that can wear on you. And I still think it's a film worth watching, especially for its ending and which I think is very, very moving, and for Rex Harrison's just great performance in it. But when you have queerness kind of stripped of its shock value, I think what you are left with is this kind of cliched bitchiness. And I think what this film does great is balance too. So you didn't feel like there's somebody making fun of these people because of them being gay, but you had enough of that shock value that these people were taking you along on a journey someplace where you've never been before, and maybe wouldn't have gone had the film not been made. And I think this film succeeds admirably at it.
Mm-hmm.
Do I think it's a great film? Absolutely not. But it's got a lot of great performances.
Yep.
Very, very sharp dialogue. It's well directed and does leave you with a lot of things to think about. We actually talked longer about this film than we did about The Organizer, for instance.
Yeah. I think that's just because of how complex human relationships can be. There's so much to unpack in even a light comedy like this. I think that makes it worth watching.
So definitely, it's free on YouTube, by the way, or it's also on Amazon right now. So and it's a film. It was made for about $3 million, made less than $200,000 at the box office. Not talked about a lot, but if you want to look at talent from the 90s, who, like I said, in Rose Troche, who just really 3 out of her 4 films are very, very good. But you're going to see things that you haven't seen before by a talent who hasn't become a part of the zeitgeist. You're going to see things that you haven't seen in other people's films. This, I think, it should be added to that list because I think it's the best of her films, and she is definitely an extremely talented filmmaker. So that's how I would sum that up. Erin, where can people find you on the internet?
I am on Blue Sky at Toad Puppy, and I'm on YouTube at Pizza Horse Productions.
Excellent. And I'm, of course, at ETROMMATER on the artist formerly known as Twitter, or follow us on YouTube at World Cinema Hist. If you are listening to this on YouTube, please give us a like and subscribe. If you're listening on Apple and Spotify, please subscribe. Give us a quick review if you can. Next time, we are going to have a crossover episode with Dr. Ernesto Morales and good friend of the podcast, Celia Bloom, with the podcast War of the Fleas, where we're going to look at Luis Buñuel's 1930 surrealist masterpiece, L'Âge d'Or. So looking forward, that is our very first crossover podcast. Whether or not Erin is on parole from her sentencing, we don't know if she's going to be there or not. We're currently negotiating with the El Salvador government, so we will let you know. Until then, thank you, Erin Brown, and we'll see you next time on World Cinema History.